by becoming rich.
Take all your money, buy Bitcoin.
You can wake up every morning and say GM.
GM. GM. Today is Friday, 25th of October. Are we in complacency? Or are we bullish? What do you think? Looking at this chart here, so one of the things that I find very, just as a general rule within price action trading, you typically don't like to see a market barely break out and then trade back inside the breakout level. So if you're taking this, for example, if a market is going to be bullish for continuation, you don't want to see the breakout essentially fail, right? So it drops down, it closes below, comes back up. In fact, closes a couple of candles below on the CME chart here, which I'm watching. Because that typically indicates a lack of real trend strength. Now, not always, and it can be subtle, but much stronger would be for it to continue consolidating above this red line. So it really should not go below the red line at all. That red line actually is your perfect support resistance level if you're a bull. And what you'd want to see would be for BTC to make a new high and then drop back no lower than there and then continue on from there, right? That's if this consolidation is going to form into a bullish continuation. The risk is, of course, that this area can equally be an FTR. And let's back to those paths that I'd mentioned before. Right? You know, these paths here, all those paths with the potential pullback off the, where are we? Get all this fucking shit. Too many different paths here, but important to note them all there, right? So, looking at this, I mentioned on the other day that the important level to break would be this low. So if it breaks this low, that's when you would trigger those continuation shorts if you were looking to short. The other area where I would consider shorting would be below this dotted red line. And also consider shorting here higher. But I'm going to lay out both the long and the short trade ideas on the trade of the day. Don't want to get too into the weeds here. But that's the thing I'm focusing on from now. Very important what happens today. The longer Bitcoin hangs around after trying to break out, especially with all the hype and how excited everyone got, it is a breakout, but it's not a strong one. So it breaks above a resistance and it kind of hangs around there. And that can very easily become an FTR and you've got gaps below and there's loads of room to flush people down. So we'll see how that goes. Solana. So Sol has been outperforming Bitcoin quite significantly on this push. And there seems to be a lot of excitement about Sol yet again. And people seem to be thinking that Sol is this is the kingmaker trade. This is the best one. This is it. Wouldn't it be a shame if something happened? So originally I said that if Bitcoin goes towards a new high, right, which it's done a lower high so far, but if Bitcoin pushes towards its high at 69k, then Sol can make a move towards its own liquidity level at 193. We'll see how that goes. Same thing for Sol is that I think it will continue to try and do that. And if it's able to, you'll see something like this, right? And if not, you'll see something like that. I think it's either going to pull back from the liquidity or pull back from the trend line / just around here. Because there's parallels with this. And the most concerning thing of all really would be, I remember people getting into the Sol trade too early, a couple of times, expecting that this was the next leg and this is it. That would generally be a good thing because it happened twice. So nobody really even liked Sol up until about here. And then they thought that was Sol done. And then Sol started to break out. And they're like, oh my God, it's the Sol trade. And so they got super, this is when the market got itself super turbo max balls long Sol. Then we sold off. Then they got long again on this bounce, FTR. Then we sold off deeper. and it held and it bounced up. Then they got long Sol here. You have to remember, and maybe I should show them side by side just to really highlight it. Sol has always been the coin that has been the preferred alternative, right? It has been like the hot altcoin, yeah. Now, when you compare Sol and Bitcoin side by side, you don't see that much that's different between them. However, whenever you look at altcoins as a whole, you'll see something interesting. So maybe I should put total 3 on, along with just Sol. So let me add that. And let's drag total 3 down to the bottom. Right. Cool. So I'm going to put them there so you've got the visual. Now, let's take off some of this shit here. All right. So when BTC topped out, Sol kept running. So Bitcoin topped here. Sol ran for another few days. That's classic. Chasing into the beta, continuing the rally, the rotation, whatever you want to call it. And it happens so fast, right? It happens across just 3 or 4 days that people don't notice the weakness on Bitcoin. Because if people have started to chase Solana and Bitcoin pulls back from 73 all the way to 65, but on every dip, Sol's getting bought up. People are like, Sol's so strong, Sol's so strong. Then, of course, it tops out. And that is a top signal itself. Top signals are not one and done. Top signals are much more like red flags, warning signs. You're looking for many of them to accumulate. And it's really easy to get yourself lost here. When Bitcoin tops on the 14th, but Sol doesn't top until the 18th, those 4 days, right? In those 4 days, Sol goes from 164 to 208. Big move, right? 30% move or something. So, then we drop back, bounce up. Sol remains strong. So people think they're okay to be in their Sol bags, right? It's going to be a bullish breakout, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Then it doesn't happen and we break down. So everything breaks down. Then on the way back up, right? So after this short consolidation, total 3, so altcoins are not strong on that bounce. So altcoins do not have much strength. They barely break as a whole, and that's including Sol. They barely break from their consolidation, right? Whereas BTC moves up towards the highs, but Sol has a really strong move up. If you're looking at the move, it's 5 or 6 day move. Very strong on Sol relative to other alts and with BTC. And so at the time, what the market was saying here was, it's back. Let's go. Round 2. We've got Bitcoin strong, we've got Sol strong, and we've got altcoins weak. And so people were playing this out as a really good thing. What you want to see is Bitcoin strength. Seems like there's Bitcoin strength. Solana has been the best large altcoin. You want to see that. And the other alts are lagging. So that's good. Well, it's not. Because Sol was outperforming BTC here on the second part of the push. Bitcoin initially outperformed here. Then Sol started to take over. And Bitcoin's last pump, that was, what news was that? There was some news, I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was some news story that caused Bitcoin to have that spike. Anyway. Then, on the rally back up, you had the same thing happen once more. Sol was by far the strongest on this rally. Right? You can see it here. By far. It went up and took out its highs. Sol hit its May highs in July. Bitcoin made a clear lower high. And alts, as a whole, even weaker. This was definitely the part where there was the biggest divergence. I talked about this on a weekly video or a daily video. I mentioned the insane open interest levels on Solana as a warning sign. Sol open interest hit all-time highs, like massively, well above all-time highs, while the price wasn't, and while Bitcoin was lower high, and obviously the rest of the altcoin market was looking distributive. Down we go, and then back it comes. And this is when it really shifted. Since then, so if you've only been really looking at a Sol over the last kind of few months, you'd think that Sol has been really bad. I've had loads of questions recently about why is Sol so weak. And I said, that's only been a phenomenon since August, since this flush out. Because then you had Bitcoin coming up, Sol made a lower high, Bitcoin made a higher high. And altcoins made a higher high, including Sol. So the rest of the alts were so much stronger there than Solana. Again, that's not a good thing, because altcoins were outperforming Bitcoin, and so we had that little sell-off. Now things have balanced a lot more, right? But alts continued to outperform. So alts as a whole made a new high there. Bitcoin made a new high. Sol didn't. Now, finally, Sol's having its run. You're starting to see this move back into Sol, which again is fine, but only if it's Bitcoin leading, Sol following. And if the alts are weak, fine. That doesn't matter. The alts being weak is totally fine, or weaker. They can take longer to consolidate. But you really don't want to see sustained Solana outperformance if Bitcoin is weaker. So this hasn't happened yet, and it probably will continue higher, just like we saw back in March and April and May and June. If you see Sol going into these highs and taking out 194, it's a carbon copy of what happened in July. If Bitcoin does not, at the same time, at least take out its own 70k level, I should say. And not just take it out. If you see Sol breaking out of there and Bitcoin false breakouts, that's relative strength on the side of Sol, which is not exactly what you want to see. If you see Bitcoin with a nice strong breakout, it closes above. Even then, if it pulls back, that's fine. If it stays out there, closes above, pulls back, it's probably going to consolidate and move higher. Just something to be watching for. A lot of people will be looking at alts as a whole, right? Saying, oh, well, until Total 3 does this and Bitcoin does that, right? Bitcoin goes sideways and Total 3 goes up, there's nothing to worry about. That's unlikely to happen. That's like a end of rally, like end of bull market type of price action. We're not really looking for that. We're just looking for what are the risk factors here for BTC to potentially pull back in here. And one of those risk factors I'd say would be for Bitcoin to make a lower high or to sweep the highs, while Solana continues to strength. And it doesn't really matter what Total 3 does. Because Sol is attracting all the flows. It's stealing all the flows away from Ethereum. And it seems like people are trying to get positioned on Sol for the big run, because it's been like the consensus trade of this cycle now. Now, it was not consensus all the way up. This has become consensus since it got above 150. Again, you have to cast your mind back to even remember this. But most people were not in any way bullish Sol the entire way up. And then it started to really become a consensus in this range here, right? Above 130, 140. So I think Sol is going to do really well. But I also think that there's plenty of risk here. If Bitcoin does pull back, that Sol can also pull back. And don't forget that Sol's actual support level is all the way down here. So there'll be nothing stopping Sol from having a sweep down before making its move up, or retracing back into it, or putting in a higher low, or whatever. So I'll be watching very closely what happens with BTC and Sol over the next few days. Because like I showed with the other chart, if you have a BTC lower high and a Sol higher high, so Bitcoin, this is currently a lower high. This is currently forming what looks to be quite strong, especially if you look at the regular chart, but on the CME chart I showed you, it's not quite as strong. And the CME is the biggest exchange. So if you look at CME, why does this matter? Well, the CME chart has dipped back below those highs and is holding the bands, but the bands should hold. In a bearish retest, the bands will also hold. The bands are just the first area where people will bid. But the CME matters because it's, far bigger, just to put it simply. Look here. CME is so much bigger. CME has 10 or 11, 12 billion. Maybe go to CoinGlass, you'll see them side by side. It's bigger than Binance. So it obviously matters. 11 billion and 8 billion, right? So CME futures are far and away the biggest. There's also far less leverage, by the way. CME futures maximum of 5x leverage, I believe, is if I got that correct. I think one contract is the minimum margin requirements are 20%, I believe. So if you could see Binance and see the open interest, and there's a mixture of everything from no leverage to 100x leverage within there, different people at different prices. CME does not allow that level of margining. So if you have 11 billion on CME and 11 billion on Binance, the 11 billion on CME is actually less levered, which would make it much more impactful because it's more money. There's more actual collateral behind it. So what happens over there is very important. And anyway, what matters is Bitcoin from here, right? Does it make a lower high in this area? If so, you're going to see deep pullbacks across stuff like Sol, if Sol continues to new highs from there. And if Bitcoin makes new highs and grinds higher, you'll see the same thing on Sol, but that's probably much more bullish for BTC, and it will drop back into some kind of higher low if it drops back at all. So that's what I'm looking at now. ETF flows, I was showing them at the start there. Everyone was hyped up about ETFs last week. Let's remember what we were talking about. There is a very clear tendency and pattern for the ETF flows to come, the high ETF flows, to come near tops. Nothing has changed that yet. We have not made a higher high above the primary major structure, which means if you zoom out and we look here on the weekly, the last high that led to the lowest low, so if this is your high that led to the low, we have not broken that yet. There has not been a close above that level, right? We're including wicks here. We're looking at the full structure. Internally, there have been. So you have seen low and a high and a higher low and a higher high and a higher low and a higher high. Yes. That's internal structure though. If you're looking at the swing high which led to the lowest low, that needs to break clearly for the market to have its final shift. Now you don't have to wait for that to happen, right? Because the essence of good trading or investing is that you are positioning before these moves in highly probable areas. So it's not like Bitcoin is screaming out anything majorly bearish, but those ETF flows do come at the peaks, the highest flows. If you look at the 27th of September and the 23rd of August, obviously can't look at the Sunday because there's no ETFs. 27th of September, 23rd of August for the last two. So August 23rd, where are we? Over here, there. 250 million after almost nothing. The last push here, 250 million. Up here, 27th of September, which is a Friday, 26th and 27th, the Thursday, Friday, 26 and 7, we have from having no flows or very low, we had 360 and 500 million right at the top. We've seen this again, and we saw it the 14th through the 17th. So we had a sustained period of 550, 370, 450, 470, right? From having negative flows to very low flows, and 250 is low relative to the next few days. So look from the 14th onwards, that's when you saw every day above 300, most above 400, and even one above 500. And then we've lost that. Now it's back to lower. So from the 14th through the 17th, that's when the most hype about ETF flows was. 14th here on the Monday breakout, 15th, 16th, 17th. So we've had these high flows and we have not continued to the upside. Price grinded a little higher over the weekend, dropped back, and we're now consolidating. For this pattern of ETF flows to be invalidated, because again, you can go back, and I've shown this before anyway, but if you're looking at the 21st to the 28th of July, it's the same story. We saw high flows at the top. 21st of July, 22nd I guess on here, 480 million, right? That 480 million was on the 22nd, which is right there. That 480 million was right here. We did not actually drop or break down for a couple of weeks after, but you can clearly see that was the top. That was the topping area. That was the topping formation, topping structure. It does not mean that the ETF flow will be the top tick on the day. It swept out a couple of times, but as a structure, it was still the top. Same here, same here. I think all of them bar one, you see the same pattern. If that's going to change, that's really bullish. If Bitcoin bucks that trend and we continue higher with more flows, great. That's a sign that the ETFs are not wrong, because they've been wrong all summer, because they've actually had highest outflows at the lows and highest inflows at the highs. So they're literally selling the bottom, buying the top. Right? That's what they have been doing. Doesn't mean they will continue to, but we want to see that getting validated. And so here we go. We're now looking at BTC going into the weekend. I think the most bullish thing would be a Friday reversal here on the lower time frames. That Friday comes back round and closes strong through the highs. That seems to be unlikely, given that Bitcoin has broken a structure on the 1 hour, which is only a low time frame, which is nothing majorly to be concerned about. It probably sets up some consolidation, and I do think we push towards these highs before any further drop. But we have a big gap untested below, right? We've had a nice rally off the lows with no retest, and we've had, there's gaps here, there's gaps there, there's untested areas all below. And especially when you look at, I think it's the 4 hour, you can see this. This is a pretty solid reversal. Like, it moved up into that area and it reversed and had 2 follow-up red candles. So I don't think it breaks straight down from here, because again, this level is untested above, and it's most likely going to go and retest that area, either for a lower high or sweep that high or whatever, chop around in this area. But you're seeing it run into resistance lower. And what are you really seeing? If you keep it really simple, and we just look at market structure by itself, we'll go to yet another chart till I get one that's fucking clean. You have the 4 hour market structure, which was here. We had an MSB, 4 hour, right? 4 hour market structure break over here. Price moves up, broke out above the highs. If you want to go to the next structure level back, which is here, we have also broken that. So here we go. Structure level of a swing low before this high, and a structure level of a swing low before the ultimate high. We sweep that out, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. It is broken structure. It is retesting a bearish market structure break on the 4 hour. And it has broken further structure to the downside. So this is, until invalidated, this is a potential early downtrend. What you want to see for that to get invalidated is what I'll show you on Trade of the Day. And that's coming next. And I'll see you at 4 p.m. UTC, GM. Blue belts and above, I did a live daily open stream last night. Check that out in the Learning Center. Exclusive extra stream for blue belts. It's in the day trader chat and the swing trader chat. I posted the link. And everyone else, I will see you 4 p.m. UTC for Casual Fridays. And on Trade of the Day, I'll break down the bullish bearish paths from here.